Good evening and welcome. This is the August 14th, 2024 public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses including planned developments, zoning relief, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Here.
Commissioner Halleck? Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Linwall?
Here.
Commissioner Rambati? Commissioner Mirinchev?
Here.
Commissioner Proctel?
Here.
Chair Rogers?
Here. So with 6 people present, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight from city staff are neighborhood land use planner Megan Jones, zoning administrator Melissa Klotz, and assistant city attorney, and I'm sorry I've forgotten your name already,
Catherine Lone.
Catherine Lone. This is a formal hearing and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will be given the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. After that, persons wishing to make a statement regarding the matter will have the chance to do so. Any person with a legal interest in property located within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commissioner's knowledge of our community, and the recommendations of staff. All testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance and the corresponding staff memorandum. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record and sign in on the provided public comment sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you may be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded on tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We do have one case before us this evening, which is 24 ZMJV 0025 regarding 1630 Ashland Avenue. Is the applicant present? All right, thank you. We will go ahead and begin the meeting with the approval of our meeting minutes. We have a few sets of meeting minutes. I'm just going to ask for them all to be approved as a group. But if there are individual changes, please note which meeting the changes are on. So with that, I will ask if there is a motion for approval of the meeting minutes for May 8th, May 22nd, and June 26th,
Do you
2024.
want those or the corrections first?
Let's make the motion and then we'll go through.
I move approval of the minutes
been
for
moved.
those 3 meetings.
Been moved by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Aravallo. Now I'll ask if there are edits and changes that need to be made.
Yes, for the May 8th minutes, on page 5 of 7, at the very top of the page, there's a number 1 that just needs to be struck. And then on page 7 of 7, I'm not quite sure, on number 1, there's a phrase at the bottom says, "To the public is strongly encouraged." It's an incomplete thought, and I can't remember from May exactly what was intended. I think it should just be struck, that phrase, but I would be, if others have a better recollection, feel free. And then finally, under at the right at the bottom, the next meeting of the Land Use Commission is to be held on Wednesday, should be May 22nd. 2024. That is it for that set of minutes. For the May 22nd meeting minutes, on page 8 of 9, with the motion, it's just my name is misspelled, so it should be Commissioner Lindwall, move to approve the map amendment and major variation. And then finally, for the June 26th minutes on page 2 of 3, the fifth paragraph down, we just need to spell Chair Rogers' name correctly. And that is it.
Any other edits or changes? No need to state if you have to abstain. Since this is a big group thing, I don't want to have to say, well, I'm abstaining on this one, I'm abstaining on that one. So I'll just do a vote for the 3 meeting minutes grouped together. Is there, not hearing any further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, the meetings for May 8th, May 22nd, and June 26th, 2024 are all approved. With that, we now will move on to the business we have, which the matter is 1630 Ashland Avenue. And Ms. Klotz, is that your case? And if you'd please read that into the record.
Peter Kading, architect and applicant on behalf of the homeowner, requests major variations for a north interior side yard setback of 1 foot where 5 feet is required and 6 inches is the existing legally non-conforming condition, section 6828A3, and a rear yard setback of 3 feet where 30 feet is required and 28 feet is the existing legal non-conforming condition, section 6828A4. The Land Use Commission is the determining body for this case in accordance with section 638 of the Evanston zoning ordinance.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to ask anybody who may be speaking to us on this matter, please be sworn by raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. If you'd please come up to the lectern and state your name and address for the record. Just you. Just the applicant at first.
Hi, Peter Kading, architect. Say address.
Yep.
1407 Ashland Avenue in Evanston.
All right, thank you. And if you'd please tell us about your project.
So the project is to remove an existing garage from the landmark home and rebuild it further to the rear of the house. The intentions are to increase the integrity of the original house. If you go forward to the rendering. So it's an 1890-ish house, William Boyington. And as you can see, originally there is a loggia on the north side with brackets. The current garage covers those brackets and sort of encompasses. 2 of the 4 brackets are completely intact. Other 2 were sort of trimmed for the garage door. So in removing the existing garage, which was added at some point after the house was really built, we can restore that north facade to pretty close to as it was originally. We've already gone and removed a shingled half rail on the front porch to restore it to the look that it has in this rendering. The second part of what we want to do with this garage is to take what's currently a very small single car garage. It was clearly built in order to fit under that loggia, and it doesn't really fit a modern car, modern SUV. And so we'd like to build a new stacked garage in the back so we could have 2 parking spaces, and additionally have a little bit of space to the south to have storage for bikes and sports equipment and that type of thing. So you can see in the site plan the demolition of the smaller garage there by the loggia and the new garage at the back. The current garage is only 6 inches from the north lot line, so we're proposing to do it a foot from the north lot line, which is still very tight. We will have to, if don't have permission to go on the neighbor's yard, to build the wall flat and tilt it up with siding and everything on there. And you can see we have 2 cars and a little bit of storage there. This gives you an idea of the house. The house in the rendering exists up to about where that rear portion is, which is probably an open porch at one point. I'm not really sure, but it's enclosed now. The rendering only goes to the back of the 3-story portion of the house. In citing the project, there are a couple things we wanted to maintain. One is there is an existing driveway and an existing curb cut to get to the garage. We wanted to simply extend those to the new garage rather than placing a new curb cut to the south of the property. The property is essentially a double lot with an open lot to the south of it. We also have sited the house all the way in the corner of the lot. And as you can see from these photos, there's a couple of red lines that there are a couple stakes, the corner of the fence, and there's a stake in the yard. And that's within a foot of where the corner of the new garage would be. So you can see it's to the north of the house to the west there where their door is. You can see most of the facades on the house to the west are blank without windows, but there is one door there. But we're proposing to put the garage to the north. Additional photos. There's another William Boynton house a couple doors down that does have an intact loggia. Or it's more of a bay, but and then you can see in the garage here where we do have these intact brackets and the size and condition of the existing garage.
Couple questions. The brackets that hold up the loggia, how far above are those? I know they're currently in the garage. Does that create any sort of an issue if the driveway were to be left there with a larger vehicle being able to pass underneath them? Because you do have not a full driveway, but two
Strips of concrete.
strips.
You know, I took measurements and in some of the 3D models, I didn't put the car in there because it gets, you know,
Right.
I don't want to deceive anybody, but definitely I took the measurements of their current car, which is a 7-person SUV, and it fits under the brackets.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you want to go down the driveway at 30 miles per hour, but
Right.
it does fit.
Okay. And were other options considered for different placements?
So
What I should ask, what other options did you consider, if you did consider any?
what other options did I look at to see if they're technically possible? The rear yard's only 28 feet. So to put a detached garage there, you'd have to subtract 3 feet and 10 feet. So that's 13 feet. It leaves you only with 15 feet, which you couldn't front load a garage there and get a conforming space in it, which means that you would have to try and side load a garage. I don't think, sorry, get back here. I don't think there's a way to make the turn from that existing driveway into a side loaded garage, which leaves you to put the garage, a side loaded garage directly behind the house, and to put some sort of driveway that would occupy that south yard. I sketched it out a couple times. I'm not sure it works. I'm not a civil engineer. I would probably, if I really had to do it, would ask an engineer, what are the radiuses for this? Because I could get a driveway that could turn you in there, but then I'm not sure really how you get out. And once we add in that driveway in this pretty large parking pad, it would, essentially take all of that sort of southwest quadrant. You're pretty close to 45% of, impermeable surface coverage there, if not over it, if you actually made it functional to, pull in and then back out and then somehow turn the other way. Like I said, you can get something reasonable, a 10, 11-foot driveway to turn in there, but then to back out, I just, you start putting a lot of pavement down.
Since you did consider, since you're looking at a tandem garage here, was there any consideration given to keeping the current garage and adding onto it and improving that way so that it would be moved forward on the lot by, I don't know exactly how many feet, but 20 feet maybe?
I'm trying to see. So you can see here in the photo on the left where the garage sort of sits in relation to the house.
Right.
There's a little bit of room there. And as I said, the preservation aspect is a reason that my owners bought this house, or, you know, the historic significance of this house. And it would not improve that. You would still have this garage that's very low and very narrow. You couldn't increase the width, obviously, we're at 6 feet off the lot line. So it would just be this long tunnel that I'm not sure that it necessarily works to bring it forward. We're pretty close to the front porch there, which, like I said, they just redid to, bring back the historic aspects of that. So I don't think that's definitely not something we looked at or talked about, because it wouldn't meet some of the goals for this project.
Okay. Commissioner Halleck?
Just down along those lines, and I think I know the answer to this, putting the garage as a detached garage on the south side would have knocked down some major trees.
Yeah, there's two. I read the tree ordinance today. I hadn't read it yet.
I didn't see a landscape plan, so
No, because there is no, where this current garage is, there's really no interference with landscaping.
Right.
In that south yard, there's two 22-inch trees that would fall in the middle of this sort of long driveway.
They're specimen trees. They're not jump trees.
Well, I mean, a maple and an elm, I think.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. In addition to the curb cut.
In
So
addition
it's-
to the curb cut.
Yes, but I understand the trees. Actually, I have a question for staff. When you look at the aerial view of that area, it looks like almost every house is existing, has some existing non-conforming condition. And I'm wondering, the 30-foot setback, is that because the garage is attached to the house? If it was a detached garage, what would the setback be?
If it were detached, then a 3-foot setback would be
3-foot
required.
setback. So really, if they took the current design and made a 6-inch made a 6-inch separation between the existing house and the garage, it would become a detached garage, and then the rear setback wouldn't be 30 feet, but it would be 3 feet?
Correct. It would still need the side yard
Right,
variation.
right, I understand the side. I'm
And it
talking
would-
about the rear yard.
And it would trigger a new variation for the distance between structures.
Right. Plus the fact, back to my other point, is that there is a house just to the southwest that looks like they have a garage that is, well, it's detached, so maybe it is 3 feet from the property line. But my point, the point I want to make is that there are other houses here that have structures, detached or not, that are very close to the property line, similar to what you're proposing. That's my only point.
Commissioner Lindvall?
Yeah, I've got a question. With the peak roof that you're proposing, how does the stormwater get handled coming off of that roof for the garage? And I know the wall is a foot from the property line. How far do the eaves extend past the?
The eaves do not extend past the exterior wall, so there would be a gutter, obviously, that would capture the rainwater, and it would need to come off the back and then go to the south and be gathered with the south gutter and downspout, and be, obviously that's part of the next step is to, work on the architecture plans, the civil drawings, but we would have to have it flow to the south yard where there's a lot of room, so that's essentially where it would end up. But yeah, it couldn't flow to the north because it
Okay,
couldn't.
so the gutter then is interior, or that would extend past the wall?
It would extend past the wall.
Okay, so we're not dealing with six, a whole foot. It's more like what, 8 inches, something like that.
Yes, I suppose.
I mean, depending on how big your gutter is.
Yeah, it'd be a 4 or 5 inch gutter. So it's much bigger when you can see it in person, but it does show there.
I just had another question.
Yeah.
We got letters recently from the West property owner and the south property owner saying that they were, am I right? I thought it was south.
The new ones are from the south.
Yeah, south and west, saying that they were okay with your proposal. There were a lot of questions to staff from the north property owner about the project, just trying to understand it. But I didn't see anything on whether the north property owner is okay with it or not okay with it or neutral. You're the north property owner? Oh, you are? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We'll hear.
I'll let her answer.
Okay, all right.
Other questions from commissioners?
I have a question.
Sure.
So is there currently in the new design, is there currently access to the home from the new garage?
No.
Or you do have to walk outside and then into the back
You have to walk
door?
outside. Currently, the attached garage, there's a door underneath the loggia, which we're proposing to keep. And so it would be, you would walk out either that door or the rear door to get to the garage itself has, the garage door and then side doors there. So, but the loggia that bumps out there is a door underneath that. So that would be the access to the large garage door, and then the stairs in the back are
Okay, thank
connected
you.
to the side door there.
So we don't, this is a question for staff. We don't have any requirements for attached garages that there be movement between the garage and the house, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to clarify. All right.
Are you going to, question, are you going to add any additional landscaping that would soften the impact of this or anything?
I could let the owner speak to that in do it now or later.
Yeah, go ahead and come up and give us your name and address for the.
Maria Updike. I'm one of the owners of the property. So the landscaping, which would be along that west wall, to basically put a line of trees starting at the north, the north line all the way to the south line, to be able to create a barrier between the house to the west and us. Trees? Yeah, like trees, like arborvitae trees. Yeah, arborvitae trees. So more of a, bush as a barrier for a tree. And then on the south wall, to put a trellis up the side to have vines. I really prefer it to be a green. When I look, there's a window that is just to the south of that, in between the stairs and the garage. And what I really want to look out on is green, and green space instead of looking at the house behind us. And so that's the plan for the landscape directly around there. Today, there's a lot of flowers and, I don't know, I guess they're just wildflowers in between the driveway and the north property. I'd like to put just a very low fence in between the two properties to make sure that property line is maintained. And then there's a bigger landscaping plan for us. I don't know if you've been by the home, but we need to redo the front walkway. It's cracked. The driveway is sinking. We want to raise that up. And then just generally plant better landscaping in the front and the side of the yard to make it more conforming to the area.
So there would be a new fence There would be a new fence that goes all across the north,
Oh, it is not proposed. It's just an idea.
no fence.
No, and it's only because the property owner to the north is concerned about us being on her property coming out of the driveway. And the best way to prevent that is to just make sure that line is demarcated.
Without
Right now.
without a fence.
Well, right now it's just
Yeah.
demarcated by
Okay. All right.
flowers.
I understand.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lindvall?
I have another question. There's a window that is shown on the west side. Why the window there and not on the, closer on the south elevation?
That was something I discussed with the Landmarks Commission and Kate Sterling. And it was just, that wall is definitely a long wall and we wanted to break it up a little bit with a window. I don't think there was a need functionally for the window. It was just, an architecture
I
feature.
was talking about the one on the west.
Right, the one on
west.
the west side, because that's the longest wall there.
No, it's not.
Oh, I'm
north.
sorry, the west.
Especially if you're going to plant arborvitae
Yeah.
and you've got a fence, that just seems,
Yeah, no, this was, I'm sorry, this is, I thought you were talking about an additional window on the south. Like I said, it was a decision to make to, architecturally for landmarks.
I have one question.
Yes.
Will you please elaborate a little bit on the roof? What was the discussion with the preservation committee? Did you have some other options? Mainly, as a land use committee, we are mostly interested in the effect over the adjacent properties. So did you consider like a flat roof? Was it possible with the preservation committee or not? And then the aesthetics of this roof. Thank you.
So, yeah. Let me get down. Maybe one of the models, because you're talking about how it's asymmetrical in the rear. And the reason that we went with the asymmetrical roof like that was that, as you can kind of see in this picture, the peak hits the side of the house there. So otherwise the peak would have shifted to the north and there would have been a sort of a strange gap in where the garage didn't look connected to the house. And there would have been a valley there, which wouldn't have been great for snow and rain, et cetera. So that was the reason we went with the asymmetrical roof. The owner was hoping that we would be able to put a gabled roof on the house for, some amount of storage in the roof space. It's not really an attic per se, but also the gable roof can use traditional shingles. It will shed water more readily and need less maintenance than a flat roof. We didn't explore it with landmarks extensively. I don't recall if we talked to them about it at all. But I do think that they appreciated the way that it connected to the house with the peak that hits the corner of the house there.
Thank you.
I have just one question about the trees that were on the south side of the house. Where are those situated in the yard? It's hard to tell because the Google view that I have is sometime during the winter, and so you see the shadow of the tree, and it's hard to tell exactly where it hits with the property line.
Yeah, I did measure them, and one is about 6 feet from the lot line. The other one's, I think, about 10 or 11 feet. Okay. And then the one is about 10 or 11 feet from the west lot line. And then the other one is 40 feet closer to the street from there.
Okay.
That seems utterly confusing to me, but hopefully it makes sense. But
all right. Other questions from commissioners at this point? If not, I'll ask you just to go ahead and have a seat.
Right.
We'll hear from other members of the public. I do have a list of 4 people signed up here, and I will apologize if I do not pronounce your name correctly. The first name is Shannon Sieberling. Cyberling, I'm sorry. See, yes, I think I have to swear you in because you guys all came in later. So if you just raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
Yes.
Thank you. And again, if you just state your name and address for the record.
I'm Shannon Cyberling. I'm the owner of the property just to the north of the line. My major concern about the project is 1 foot enough to avoid having to have people or construction workers or maintenance take place on my property in order to maintain their property. The gutter issue and that steep roof is one immediate issue. Is that really enough to prevent debris off their roof from coming down onto my property? Also, how close to my property is the driveway going to be so that nobody has to step over the line in order to get in and out of their car? That's my main concern. I don't want it established that it's okay to trespass on the property next door in order to either build or maintain their property. I can imagine building a garage too. How are they going to build it without construction workers on my side of the property?
Could I ask you a question? Would you be happier if there was a fence there that was a barrier that no one could ever cross?
Well, I would just like it not to be necessary for them to cross it in order to get in and out.
I understand that, but,
Or in order to come around the garage.
right,
to
but,
clean the gutters.
but there may be an occasion where someone accidentally steps across the property line, which might be upsetting to you, but would that would not happen if there was a fence there? I'm just wondering if you sound like you're ambivalent about a fence.
Don't want it a necessity. In other words, can they really get in and out of their cars, open both car doors, say on the north side of their car, and have passengers get out without walking in the flower bed? I don't know whether the fence is the answer or not, but I don't want it established that people are going to be.
Isn't there a driveway? Isn't there a driveway there currently? There is a driveway there currently.
Yes.
Have you had situations if someone parks in the driveway, not in the garage, but in the driveway, and someone steps across the property line?
Do they have to in that case with their?
No, I'm asking, what's the reality? Have people stepped across the property line intentionally or accidentally? That
No.
you don't
We
know.
aren't exactly positive as to where the property.
Yeah, I'm just saying they're not changing the driveway.
Certainly step into the edge of the current flower bed that's
Uh-huh.
there in order to get out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where the new driveway is proposed compared to where the.
It's
old
the same location, I believe, right? I think the other answer, and you could answer this, but if they have to park in the driveway right now, that's what's causing the situation. But if they have a 2-car garage, they will be parking inside the garage
Maybe.
and not on the driveway. But in any case, it won't be any different than what's there now,
Why won't it be any different?
because they're keeping the driveway.
The edge of the driveway, of the new driveway will be in the same place where the
They can-
current
they
edge
can-
of
they-
the driveway is.
If you come to the microphone so we're sure you're recorded.
As I say, I'm
Just a
my
moment.
concern that people don't
If-
have to move onto my property in order to maintain what you're doing.
Sure, and I understand the concern. What we're proposing,
Could you
though,
move a little closer to the microphone? I don't know that they're picking you up, so.
I understand the concern, but what we're proposing is to simply extend the 2 pieces of concrete that compose the driveway to the new garage. So it would be in exactly the same place it currently is.
Okay.
All right.
And then the arborvitae, what did you plan to, I didn't understand what you were describing about where you were going to plant.
If
Are
you
planting
could
on
pull the
north side
microphone down,
or
ma'am.
just on the west
Ms.
side or
Seiberling?
the south side? Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine.
The new landscaping,
Yes.
is any of it on the north side of the garage, or is it all planned for the south and the west side of the garage?
The owner is shaking her head no. So the only thing that she's testified to so far has been on that small strip of land that is on the west side, and then a trellis with vines, if I understand correctly, on the south side.
So nothing on the north side? Okay.
Let me ask you a question, Ms. Seiberling, while you're here. If a fence were proposed, would you be opposed to a fence being in that position?
Maybe I'd have to look at the fence first.
Okay.
Maria did mention a low fence.
If you could just
Well,
come up.
that's a fence that should go. I quite.
There is a fence there now. Where the proposed garage is, there's a fence.
So but I think my question is, if we were to bring the fence forward, say to where the old garage, our current garage sits, would Ms. Seiberling be opposed to that?
No.
Okay. So it basically wouldn't change the look of things because it actually would be shorter to have a fence there than the existing garage. The existing garage, I don't know the exact height, but I'm guessing it's 10, 12 feet. Something like that. I mean, it's taller than 6 feet, which is what a fence would be. So, yeah.
Okay, how about the problem of the runoff from the roof? What are we doing? What are we really do we have a satisfactory solution so that the debris from their roof doesn't end up?
I believe Commissioner Lindwall asked the question about the gutters, and I believe the answer was a 4 to 5 inch gutter. Is that correct, Mr.
I'm not-
Kading? Which is,
Here enough to know whether that would really take care of it.
well, that should be sufficient to handle that small, it's a small roof overall.
But it's
And
very steep.
It is very steep, but the water that hits it only hits that area and will run to
And then
the
in order
larger than it's larger than average gutter. So an average gutter, Commissioner Halleck, 3 or 4 inches. So this is 4 to 5 inches. So it is larger than a typical house gutter.
Maybe I should address it to the architect. Is that sufficient width to take care of what you imagine will be coming off of there so it won't be dripping down over? Because it's wider than usual?
You
is
can
that
use the
gonna take
handheld
care
if
of
you
it?
want.
Yes, I believe so. And what the commissioner is saying is that a steep roof actually works in our favor because rain for the most part falls vertically. So a steep roof has a smaller area this way rather than
I see
a
what you
shallow
mean.
roof that gets wider. That
How about
catches more-
cleaning the
catches more rain.
gutter? Will somebody have to come around? I mean, I suppose they'd have to ask permission. Is it okay if we come over on your side to clean our gutter?
So yes, that's something that would have to be worked out with neighbors if they want to come onto your property to clean the gutter. Of course, a gutter can be cleaned from on top of the roof, so you can get onto the roof, clean the gutter, and then stay on your property the entire time. But that would need to be worked out with you and the Updikes if they did
Or
propose
with
to
the
go.
future owner? I mean, you don't
Sure.
know who's going to be living in either house in the future.
Correct, yes, or with the
So we
future
don't want it
owner.
established that somebody has to go on to one property in order to maintain the other property.
Sure.
All right.
Chair, just one question. I will question staff and our legal counsel. Isn't it necessary in such cases where the main thing will be maintenance and construction? Isn't it necessary to have a covenant between the neighbors about access to this north wall and to the garage so that there could be emergency need? How will somebody work over there? Just a question.
Are you asking about an easement or
No, just something like a covenant agreement between the neighbors so that they allow access.
they can certainly do that. It isn't required.
Okay, thank you.
I think the question is maybe that, do they have to, for this project, do they have to provide a construction plan or a procedure
Yes.
that we do?
For a project of this size, typically a construction management plan is not required, but given the situation, that could be a condition that could be added. Other potential conditions that might help could be things like gutter guards or a requirement of where to place the downspouts.
Other questions? Anything else, Ms. Seiberling, before I move to the next person?
I think you can move to the next.
All right, thank you. Next up is Amanda Ziem. Zime? Ziem, I got it right? Okay.
That's right. Second vowel is long. Hi, my name is Amanda Ziem. I live at 1632 Wesley Avenue. I'm also a preservation commissioner, but I'm not here in that capacity tonight. I live close to the project being reviewed and I'm familiar with the houses on the street. I do have some concerns about the impact to the north neighbor's property, specifically around your standard for review, the number 1, which is the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, property values, or property values of the adjoining properties. The close 1-foot setback from the neighbor on the north is too close to the property line to allow proper maintenance or exiting the cars without walking on the neighbor's property. Currently, there are many plantings, I think, which were already mentioned on the property, wildflowers, et cetera. And I think it would adversely impact the neighbor's use and enjoyment of their property. And I do just also want to clarify, the driveway is different. It's much longer than the previous driveway. So you can see they're removing the existing garage, and it will be much longer. The run on the driveway is much longer. So there is more, it's not just the same driveway with a new garage. So I just want to point that out because I don't think that was clear prior. But I would also consider standard number 7 about the minimum, I guess the minimum change required. Not sure that this 2-car garage, it's like a 1.5 car width, 2-car tandem length is necessary for this project. And I would just hope that you would consider those 2 standards when reviewing the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Safford is next.
Good evening. I'm Joan Safford. I'm from 1618 Wesley Avenue, where I've been a happy resident since 1967, which makes me the most senior resident for blocks around. I am coming this evening I don't have strong feelings about the particular property, and I think obviously Shannon is the person who's most impacted because there is rather large fence between the property, the Updike property, and the house that's on Church Street, which is close in behind. And they have not appeared, I gather, and there's been no objection from theirs. Oh, excuse me?
Is that the little coach house? Yes. I sent in information like a week ago, and I don't know if anyone's read it, but yeah, I mean, it would totally impact our.
So let's not get off on a tangent here for a moment. Let's go ahead and let Ms. Safford
Okay,
finish.
yes, in fact, you should be speaking then.
Yeah.
Because I was I didn't know who that neighbor was, despite my long residence in the neighborhood. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that this is a neighborhood that was really began being, in the 19th century, horse and buggy days or walking. And everybody walked or was in a horse and buggy, and the horses and buggies went elsewhere. So actually garages are a newer addition to the neighborhood at all. And I'm afraid I sit on a perch because I live on the alley my house goes, exits on the alley that is between Ashland and Wesley. And therefore there are a series of 2-car or 1-car garages along that. The King property, we objected to it being a 2-car garage. And in fact, it is a 1-car garage. That's beside Amanda's coach house. Because of the crowding created by it. But I did a survey of the immediate neighborhood, and I'm talking Ashland, Florence, Church, Wesley, down to Grove, and came up with the figures to make you realize that this is really a 2-car garage is not the standard. There are 16 2-car garages in that neighborhood. There are 18 1-car garages. There are 10 which have no garages whatsoever. And I think what that indicates is that if a 2-car, I don't really understand why a 2-car garage is a necessary addition in this historic district. It seems to me that I understand that, the Updikes have got I guess they have 2 cars, but I know that they have a SUV, which needs a bigger garage. But if the garage were for 1 car and it was pushed back so that you've got that balustrade or whatever it's called restored, it seems to me that is enough in the context of the neighborhood that they live in, where there are, as I say, more 1-car garages than 2-car garages, and many properties which have no garages whatsoever. And we are all, and I know that the Updikes walk, we walk we all are easy commuters to this wonderful neighborhood, which has got the CTA and the metro and the buses. And but anyway, that I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that the two-car garage is not the standard. But obviously, the question of the impact on the neighbors is the question that matters the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stafford.
Could I just clarify? You are not one of the residents that are either north, south, east, north, south, or west, correct? Or on that block?
No.
Okay, that's all.
I'm within the mailing district, but no, I'm on Wesley.
Neighbor, but not
Church and
immediate
Davis.
neighbor.
Yeah.
I have Mary McWilliams, I'm sorry.
Hello, I'm Mary McWilliams. I live at 1606 Wesley. I've lived there since 1976. I live in a house that is a zoning administrator's nightmare, just from the place. It is carved out of a larger lot, a lot that held 2 houses, it now holds four large houses, of course, large being the operative word. And I have no access to the alley. My house is 3 feet on the north side to the north property line. On the south side, it encroaches into the neighbor's property 18 inches. The driveway on the west side, the garage on the west, a lovely 2-car garage on the west side, sits inches from the west property line. So I understand the problem that we're dealing with and sympathize very much with Mrs. Seiberling about just because the concern for respect of property. I have gotten easements with my south and west neighbors, and I don't have an easement with my north way neighbors. I have had some work done. I've been scrupulously careful to make sure that I did get zoning permits so that I would not be in violation, especially since I served on the Preservation Commission and felt that it was an obligation to follow the rules. I am concerned that without some sort of written understandings, it'd be very easy for encroachment onto Mrs. Seiberling's property. And I think it can be worked out, but I think it is a legitimate issue for her to deal with. But as I said, and it has worked out for me, but not without doing some extra steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were the 4 names I had signed up. I don't know if you'd like to speak. We have you in your documentation but if you'd like to just make a brief statement, you are more than welcome.
I would just say,
If you could just come up and give your name and address for the record, please.
Ellen Prieto, 1510 Church. We're in the coach house that I mailed you guys information showing the orientation. The entrance, since it used to be the coach house to that residence 1630, it faces directly into the backyard of their proposed area that they would like to put this garage in, this 2-car garage. And it would be 3 feet away from the entryway, which is, I don't know, you could probably tell on this, kind of an impediment. I mean, it would be there forever for zillions of years, and having a fence there is not going to make it so that it is not a visual problem. I don't know if you would like to, review the pictures that I sent in, but, it would impact the entryway and kind of take away from the aesthetic of the little coach house.
I'm confused. I thought, and I brought up the 2 letters, but I thought there was a letter in support from the resident that was directly west, which you're saying.
No, absolutely not. And I sent it to 3 people. I sent it to the zoning, I sent it to Cade, and I sent it to Ms. Jones. Yes. And it is a strong objection to it because it would bring it 3 feet away. It would impact the entryway. If that fence weren't there, it would basically be in our entryway. And a fence is an impermanent feature. And this would be a very permanent feature.
Who has, do you have the remote for the thing? Can you take us to, I think it's page, let me see if I can figure out what page. It's the pictures that she submitted, which are down below. I don't have a page number on here. It's page 73 of the packet. That's it, but if you can
Okay, so
zoom out a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
West is where this proposed structure would be.
So basically in this picture, that fence that has vegetation growing on the left side
Correct. And
is
3
the current fence that separates
Correct.
your property from the subject property, correct? Okay.
So what they're proposing is to the east of that fence, there would be a row of arborvitaes, which are well, why don't you explain?
Sure. I think there's a little bit of confusion. So I have a slide, maybe page 13. Sorry. I did see your letter last week, and let's do, geez.
I mean, I think an important factor in the zoning is to maintain, adequate spacing between residences. And bringing this so close really kind of defies that. And
But isn't your property all right up against the line as well?
it's, what do you mean, what up against the line?
You're at 1510, correct?
Correct.
So the east portion of your property, of your structure is right up on the line as well?
Right, that line, that fence, I believe, is the dividing.
Right.
And so it would be 3 feet, going from what is it, 30 setback or whatever.
Sure.
3 feet is pretty dramatic and would kind of, it would always be there. The fence isn't a permanent feature. It's a,
So the green portion there, that's the front door you're talking about, correct? So in the lower, it's a little bit hard to see on these screens, but there's some red lines there where it's labeled 16'5". That's the approximate south corner of the proposed garage. So you can see that the new corner is to the north of that entrance by several feet.
Mm-hmm.
Can you point out that line? I'm sorry.
Yeah, everything looks good when you look on your computer monitor, and then when you see it on the screen. It's right here in this picture, right here in this picture, and then there's 2 of them there with a measurement between them. So here's the fence on the north lot line by Ms. Cyberling's house, and then so the garage would go essentially from here to there.
And is the fence, is the fence staying or going?
I mean, the fence.
Whose fence is it?
The fence meanders across multiple property lines, so I have no idea at this point who, installed this fence. So
I believe it was the former owners to the old fence.
okay, so possibly the former owners. There's no proposal as of yet to replace the fence. At some point in the future, maintenance or damage may require it, but right now there's no proposal to replace it.
But it's an impermanent feature.
If you could come forward so we're sure we're getting you.
A fence is an impermanent feature, and putting structures are permanent features. And, the zoning is there to kind of protect the rights of residents and maintain them as separate entities, basically. And that's why zoning is, I imagine.
Okay.
I could explain this, but could you explain how the arborvitaes are going to work then? Because they will be on the inside, your side of the fence, and they will be.
Yeah, I mean, arborvitae obviously can range anywhere from 8 feet to 30 feet tall, depending on the species. They grow straight and narrow, which is great for, along a fence line because they do provide some privacy or separation
And
from
how
a
will they
property.
be maintained and pruned, or are they ever going to be pruned with that 3 feet?
They can be pruned. Arborvitae don't need a whole lot of pruning typically, and as long as they get some amount of light, they seem to grow forever.
But are you going to have to prune it from the roof? I mean,
So there are a lot of theoreticals here that, as Ms. Seiberling said, it depends on the neighbor and whether they're willing to come to arrangement to allow people to prune from different areas. If not, yes, they could be pruned from the roof, if necessary. I don't typically, arborvitae is not something I think of as needing a lot of pruning typically, so
All right. I don't want to belabor the point on pruning habits of arborvitae. But did you have anything else you wanted to add?
As long as, those documents.
Yep, we have your documents. They were submitted as part of everything.
And I'm sorry, I did see it. I just didn't realize what I was looking at. I apologize.
All right. That's the names I had signed up. Is there anybody else here who wanted to speak to us on this matter? Yep, go ahead. And state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Kate Kohler. I'm one of the owners at 1629 Florence, so directly west. So maybe I did submit a letter and I am directly west, so maybe that's where some of the confusion was. But what struck me about this project was the aesthetics and the intention to detail to keep with the historic nature of the home. I think it looks beautiful. I also have children and in and out of cars, and I know how that can get. So I understand how when you're unloading a car, the car can tend to explode sometimes. So with that being said, I would say that the addition of a 2-car garage would eliminate some of the issues around having to get in and out of a car in front of where those wildflowers are. And so I thought the 2-car garage was actually a benefit. And it being behind where the existing garage is, also both cars can be concealed. I am a walker. I walk my dog in the neighborhood a lot. And I think it's a nice option to have both cars inside that 2-car garage.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Kohler? Nope.
I'm Kate Kohler.
And this is what I misunderstood. When you say you're directly west, you are directly west, but you're not adjacent.
We share, I think it's like 10 feet. I don't exactly know because of all the vegetation, but when I'm in my home, from my second floor, I can see, the Updike's home. It's because it used to be like an alley where the coach house, I think, is. So it's unclear to me actually where the property line is, but I can see their home from my home. From the backyard.
That's the coach house.
Yeah, I know. Where is she?
Yeah, she's
I'm at 1629 Florence.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
With that, I will ask Mr. Kading if there is anything that you would like to say in summation, anything you would like to respond to. I mean, you kind of were responding in real time, but if there's anything you'd like to say in summation before we close the record. Okay, yeah.
So the thought of this project, as Peter mentioned, is the garage in its current form, as we fondly refer to it, as a lean-to. It can hold bikes, but it isn't in keeping with the integrity of the home. We did a lot of research on the history of the home. That garage was built in 1951, which is not a time, the size of the cars was slightly bigger, but not as tall. And so the garage in the way that we configured it here was to maintain the integrity of the home. And I will say that we've lived, to the south of Shannon for 4 years, and we've never had any conversation or anything about us being on her property or about the the ability for us to get in and out of the car. The flowers that she planted are technically on our property, but we've never really had any problem with that. And so I don't perceive there be a problem with us having a garage or the driveway there now. And then we were really considerate about where we were putting it so that we weren't blocking the doorway of the home in the back. And one of the alternatives was to put it in the back directly behind so that it would be right, blocking the home. And that we wanted to tuck it into the corner to try and preserve the green space to the south of the house, which has 2 very large trees. Another alternative was to put the garage in the south yard, which would take out the trees and be a much bigger imposition to the neighborhood. And we wouldn't have required a major zoning variance to do that. And so part of what we're trying to do, right, is tuck it in there so we can put cars and bikes in there, maintain the architectural integrity of the home, and not, the house to the west is 3 feet from the fence today, closer if you measure from the gables. So we aren't asking for any more or less variance than they have to their property line. And then also we're trying to stick it in the corner so it doesn't actually impede any of their light from their front door. So
Got one question. Did you consider just doing a 1-car garage with the additional storage?
Part of the issue, especially now that we've had a lot of these very challenging storms, is that I did have a car, 2 cars damaged in a hailstorm, totaled, in fact, a couple of years ago. And if we were going to spend the money to put a garage in, I wanted to try and prevent, the damage from having a car on the street or on the driveway during storms. So that's why we were looking to do a 2-car garage.
All right, thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin deliberations. I'll ask for just general thoughts from commissioners. Real quick.
Yeah, I thought that we were postponing the decision until the 28th. Is that not happening anymore? She had asked for a continuance.
One of the public comments has a request for a continuance in it.
So
Okay, who is that?
That was Shannon. You asked for a continuance, so we didn't have to, we didn't do it today, but waited for 2 weeks.
Oh, I didn't, no, I just, as I say, I'm concerned that there's going to be some necessity to always come over. If there's really room for you to get in and out of your cars underneath the brackets, and also to maintain your garage without coming over on my side.
I mean, in 4 years, we haven't come over to do it.
Okay. Let me ask Ms. Klotz. Okay, everyone, please, just a moment. Just a moment. Ms. Klotz, was there a request for continuance in the documents that I just missed, or is it on page 74?
If I may, I believe it was if these questions are answered. Yes, she had questions that she was concerned about and asked if her questions could be answered. So I guess it's.
And I provided those answers via email.
So I just wanted to make sure that Ms. Seiberling does not want a continuance at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct. I don't need a continuance as long as the plan, and you mentioned a construction plan, as long as either the construction or its future use doesn't require that people use part of my property in order to do it.
All right, thank you. Real quick, because the record's closed, I'm not taking any more testimony, but if you have a question about procedural, I will answer that question.
I don't know if it's about procedural, but any kind of construction would impact the entry of our house. So I would just say.
Okay. All right. Yep. We're aware of that. We're aware of that. All right. Thank you. I will now ask general thoughts from commissioners on the project. Commissioner Halleck.
Yeah. As I said before, I when you look at the site plan, it looks like there are several homes here that are in violation of the zoning. In fact, the home that is directly west is in violation of the zoning. And so, I think what we have to deal with here is the reality of that condition, and it's not a perfect world. The other issue, I think, is that I believe that that people these days, and I think that a city needs to accommodate how people live, not in 1900 when there was horse and buggies, but now when a typical family has two cars for various reasons. And so I think that the solution of a tandem situation is the least troublesome to me in terms of zoning than it would be if there was a two-car garage, two side-by-side cars. So I like what the scheme did with the tandem. I like the fact that it restored the north facade of the house. Yeah, I think the one thing that's come up in this testimony from the neighbors, though, is this issue of stepping over the property line, whether it's construction or maintenance or other things. It's clear in the building code in terms of drainage. Drainage can't go beyond your property line. So that's I can see how that could be taken care of given the gutter and the downspouts. I'm not sure how construction of this garage will happen without at least stepping over the north property line. And if that agreement can't be had, which I would encourage the north property owner to be a little bit sympathetic to this property owner in terms of temporarily accommodating something that they need to have done. However, I do think that given the fierce opposition to stepping over the property line, I think that one of the conditions should be that there is a construction plan that verifies that this will not happen as part of our recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner Linville?
I think the thing that bothers me the most is the garage ending up 3 feet from the west property line. I understand the desire to, have the parking for the two cars and given the hail and other storm damage that's reasonable. But we're talking, and I don't know if it's possible to move the garage a little bit further to the east. I know there's a window kind of on that north facade that obviously you don't want to impact, but I think another couple of feet would be really helpful if that's possible. The other thing that initially concerned me was the fact that, that you're going from what's now a 24-foot garage along the north property line to 37 feet. So that's quite an additional piece of building, although there is a fence there now. So I think that my concern, and however you did it, if you tried to make a turn and put it in the rear yard, I mean, you'd still be, there still would not be a 30-foot rear yard setback because that's not the condition now. So that's, I think, really kind of my concern, because I think that the entry to 1510, I mean, there's the fence there now, and actually the fence really kind of frames that entrance. So, and I'm not sure if you're better off with a fence framing it or with, shrubbery. And that, I think, needs to, be considered. So again, I think that this is an issue where neighbors really kind of need to sit down and work through what the construction plan really is.
Could we get an answer on moving the garage slightly, whatever that dimension is, to the east? Is that procedurally correct or not?
if you would like to vote to reopen testimony to get the answer to that.
Say,
All right.
I guess.
Commissioner Puctel?
All right, going down the line. I'm in favor of the project. I think it's very reasonable, and I think it's the minimum amount of variations they're seeking in a tight situation. I think there's many other configurations that the owner could have been proposing to make life better for them, to be honest, but that would have more serious implications for the historical look and feel of the house, and or even more imposition on the green space and neighbors. I think what they're proposing is already fairly constrained for the owner as well. I mean, it's a garage that is literally touching their house, yet they still have to walk outside. They're not modifying they're using the same configuration of the driveway, and tucking it back in the corner like that I think is the most practical solution. And I think that what they're proposing is the most practical and least egregious solution. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Arvalo?
I mean, I'm in favor of the project. I agree with Commissioner Puctel on this is probably the minimum change that could happen and impact all around, especially if you're trying to preserve the integrity of historical landmark home. I mean, the owner is by right can be able to put in a 6-foot fence in between all the way around their property except for the front yard. So they could do that at any point, and they would not have to even ask for permission because that is already permitted. So they're actually moving the entire garage 6 inches more than where it's sitting right now, further to the south. Because right now they have a 6-inch, it's 6 inches away from the property line, and their proposal is for it to be 12 inches away. So it's actually already moved south. So I don't know how much more they could, if they place the garage as a detached garage, they're still never going to be able to get all of the conditions, and they'd be triggering other variances and be before us again. So again, I am in favor.
Commissioner Miranchuk?
I would say that it's a very, tough project. And I'm really sympathetic about the need of putting 2-car garage for the owners. But I think with this solution, this project is a kind of asking for trouble in the future. 1 foot, you cannot maintain a building with 1 foot distance to a property line. And if there is a fence, things become even worse. You simply cannot even touch the wall on the north side. So, once again, for me, it's a very difficult decision, but I simply don't like the 1 foot variance. Thanks.
Thank you. My general thoughts before going through the standards is where I have the biggest problem with this particular project is that we're talking only about 1 yard, and there is an entire lot to the other side. And when we look at lots of these issues, one of the things we look at, and one of the questions I asked at the very beginning was sort of what other options were considered, what other options were available to the homeowner. It's been mentioned that, well, these other places don't conform. We have a lot of stuff in Evanston that doesn't conform because we imposed a zoning code on top of existing buildings. I don't remember the exact years when all of these particular buildings were built, but I bet that a number of them are pretty close, if not predating our first zoning code. So, we kind of fit things in where they fit best. But where I have an issue with that, I think, is that when we drew these lines and made these rules, that the people who got those little, if you want to call it a perk by having the smaller side yard or whatever setback, it becomes all the more important, I think, that when we approve something as a commission, that we look at not making that situation worse. If there are places where there is a lot of yard, trying to move things further into the yard, and not granting a variation for a setback if there's already a tight setback on a neighboring property. It sort of is a rule of, who got there first. We see this happen a number of times where property lines are drawn oddly, and they're right up against one house, and the next house has, instead of having a 3 or 5 foot setback, they may have a 30-foot setback on some of our larger properties. So I guess where I'm going with this is that I just have a real problem with this, in my opinion, not meeting a number of the standards. Because I see other options that are available. Are they the best options for this particular homeowner and their situation? Maybe not. But zoning doesn't look at necessarily an individual owner and their interaction with the property, but the land use itself and how we produce the built environment on that land. So that's my general thoughts on it. I will say that if the commission decides to vote in favor of this, I do think I heard 2 conditions that I think made a lot of sense, which would be, one, having some sort of a construction plan on how to lessen the impact on the surrounding neighbors during the construction process, because it will be very tight. And I believe that like some form of gutter guards or something was mentioned as well, to kind of prevent the having to clean gutters, which eliminates one aspect of having to go onto the property to the north. Those are my general thoughts.
Can I just say one more thing? What's also puzzling me, frankly, about the zoning code is that, and then correct me if I'm wrong, quoting wrong, but if there was a 6-inch slot separating this garage from the existing house, then the 3-foot setback would be allowed under zoning because it would be a separate structure. So
But there's a distance between principal structure and accessory structure for garages, there not, or have we gotten rid of that?
Correct. There is a 10-foot requirement for separation of structure.
For separation of structure, okay.
So you can't just move it 6 inches, they would have to come.
Okay, so I'm wrong about that, but still, if it was a separate garage, it could be by zoning 3 foot away from that west property line, and that would be compliant.
Correct.
I think.
But it still has to be 10 feet away from the house.
I understand, but in terms of the neighbor to the west, it would be code compliant to build a garage 3 foot away from that west property line.
It would be, yes.
Yes. Okay.
But we'd be looking at a different
scheme,
a different set of variations as well.
I understand.
And usually in those sorts of situations, you're 3 feet from an alley.
Right.
So.
And I think that's quite often why that is the case, because that's where in 98% of the cases we would see it would be 3 feet off of an alley, as opposed to a rear property yard that has a second house on the other side.
The other thing is when we talked about the south, putting it on the south, obviously that's the bigger yard. I don't know. I know Evanston has this, trees are now that, you have to review every tree that you want to cut down. And I'm not sure if they would even allow cutting down, those 2 large trees.
Well, that and Public Works does not want to add
another,
driveways.
but they really,
so in terms of options, I guess what I'm addressing here is that, new curb cut, cutting down trees, is that really an option?
I think that a new curb cut is a trade of a curb cut. And I think there might be schemes. We haven't seen a scheme that involves building in the south yard. There may be a way to do it. I don't know. But I'm looking at the project that we have before us now, and my feelings are that it does not meet some of these standards. So with that, I will ask if, I don't know where you feel, Commissioner Lindwall, on this.
Probably have issues with the same standards you do.
Because I can go through the standards and just have everyone voice their concern about the standards that I don't feel are met. And if you just want to chime in when we get to those. I was asking you because I was going to ask you to go through standards if you were 100% in favor of this. But if you have issues with standards, then having you go through them makes no difference. So in order to approve anything, there must be 7 standards that this commission finds are met. They are in section 63812, standards for variations. The first one being the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, and property values of adjoining properties. We have had testimony from the neighbor to the north that this, and from the west, that they feel that this will impede their enjoyment and the use of their properties, and how this particular building set in this particular set in this particular site would impact them. So I feel that that standard is not met. I know there are commissioners who will, so I'll ask if there's one who would like to vocalize that.
Yeah, I'll vocalize that. I think it is met because I don't think that the keying in on the word substantial on the north, it's not significant. It's not a substantially different situation, and on the west, I think I guess it's subjective about what we think substantial is. To me, those properties are already tightly put in there, and 3 feet is practical.
All right, thank you. The requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. I feel this one is partially met. Obviously, one of the things that we do look at in the zoning ordinance is trying to remove cars from the street and actually have places on properties where they can park, whether that be in a garage, on a parking pad, driveway, whatever. So I believe that part of it is. However, I also feel that in looking at the variations the variation that's being requested, I think kind of shoehorning a tandem garage into this particular location is not in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Again, I'll ask if there's somebody who would like to, I don't know, Mr. Fructell, if you just want to rebut me on everything.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Again, it's a balance. So I agree there's challenges on the west and north, but there's other parts of the zoning ordinance in which shoehorning, so to say, to use your word, is actually more favorable in order to preserve the function of the south yard and the historical context of the front facing building. Putting it in the rear back there is quite practical.
All right, thank you. The alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. I don't feel that this one is met because I think that there are other locations which could be explored, which would make this a more likely location for a 2-car garage. Again, Mr. Patel, I'll go to you.
I'll just say I think it's met.
All right.
Same reasons.
All right. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty is distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. This really gets into the definitions of hardship, difficulty, and inconvenience. Obviously, any movement of the existing garage is going to require something to be done with the house, because the garage is currently sitting on the house. It's abutting the house directly. You have parts of the support of the loggia in the garage. So, there is some difficulties there. Again, I wish we had been able to see a different proposal that didn't have as many challenges, I think, that this one does. But I feel that the standard is not met. Commissioner Puchtel, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do think it is met. I think their solution actually is maintaining a hardship and a practical difficulty and an inconvenience for them. So that the exception proves the rule.
Commissioner Halleck, did you want to add something? Or
I was going to say, if you maintain the attached garage arrangement, you put it on the south side, you're gonna either put it in the same place just further south, or you're going to disrupt the historic elevation of the building. So,
all right, thank you. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. We've heard no testimony here that they intend to rent out the garage or do anything like that. This is for their own personal use. Obviously, the home would become more attractive when it is sold down the line, but that's not exclusively a desire to extract income. That is making the property useful for this particular homeowner, and I believe that standard is met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. We heard testimony that the current garage, I think, was built in 1951, which I think predates this ownership of this particular property. I think you said you've lived there for 4 years, if I'm correct. And so they bought this situation as it was and are looking to make it more adaptable to their particular use and what they want to do. So I believe that standard is met. Number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the zoning board, between the Land Use Commission. This standard I don't believe is met. Again, I think when we have an entire lot sitting to the south of this particular home, that there were other options that were available. And so I feel that the standard is not met. Commissioner Halleck,
because I think when you think about zoning, when you think about Evanston, I think you have to, especially in old neighborhoods like this, the open space is just as important as the building. And if you put it on the garage on the south side, then you're violating that. So I don't think that that's a better solution.
All right, thank you.
And also, among the other options that we've theorized about where the garage could be, they all are on balance worse, in my opinion. And so the fact that they're putting it in that back northwest corner is already seeking the least deviation, and it's an extremely modest proposal.
All right. Those are the standards that we've gone through. I will ask if those who did, everybody kind of, we had both opinions, so I don't know that I need to ask if everybody's in agreement with my findings, because my findings are not the findings of other members. But I will ask if there is a motion in regard to 1630 Ashland Avenue. And before we take the vote, I will just mention that because we are the determining body in this particular case, according to our rules and according to state law, we must have 5 concurring votes for anything to pass or be denied. So a 4-3 vote or a 4-2 vote doesn't mean anything. What we will do is in the future, we will ask any commissioner who is not here to cast their vote without any further testimony. They will watch the video of this and read the meeting minutes. But so if for some reason this does not get 5 votes, it doesn't mean it passes or it doesn't mean it fails. That's just one of the idiosyncrasies of the law. Okay, so we have a 9-member commission, and according to the state law and according to our rules, there must be 5 concurring votes. So there are 6 of us here. If it's a 4-2 vote or a 3-3 vote, it doesn't pass, it doesn't fail. we have to wait until a fifth member votes either for or against whatever the situation is. I'm just saying that now as a preparation. We have 2 people who are missing, and we have an empty slot on the commission as well. Yes, but I'll get to that later. So with that, I will ask if there is a motion in regard to 1630 Ashland Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, I'll move to, in the case of 1630 Ashland Avenue, 24 ZMJV-0025, to approve the major variations as stated in the packet, and also attach to that proposal, or to that motion rather, 2 conditions. One is that the owner has to submit a construction plan that details how there will be no infringement onto the north boundary line during construction. And the second condition being that there's a requirement for gutter guards along the north, at least the north side of the garage, in order to minimize any maintenance on the north.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Puchtel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Yes.
Commissioner Halleck? Commissioner Lindwall?
No.
Commissioner Kmerinchev?
No.
Commissioner Puchtel?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
No. So the vote currently stands at 3-3. So the 2 commissioners who are not here tonight will have to vote on this the next meeting. And you don't have to come. There will be no testimony or no additional documentation. Literally, I ask them if they have read the transcript or watched the video, and then ask them to cast their vote. So you will, what's our next meeting? The
28th.
28th.
Clarification, if these 2 members cannot come to the next meeting.
It just rolls until
Keeps rolling.
It keeps rolling until they show up. And if it ends in a 4-4 vote, which is a possibility.
Yes.
Then we have to wait for a 5th commissioner to be confirmed.
And you will speak to that.
And I will speak to that during communication.
I just think that's an unfortunate situation for the homeowner.
It is. I mean, those are the rules, though, and sometimes we get into these weird situations.
Yeah, I know. And there absolutely is no. I'm looking at our law person here. There's no way around it. I mean, I am just thinking that this could go on forever without a decision.
I am aware of the rule, the Land Use Commission rules. I am not aware, certainly I could look into it with respect to any state laws.
Okay.
Certainly the Land Use Commission rules can be amended, but I would have to look into state law first.
Ms. Klotz, is it not part of the state statutes?
I believe it is a state law for home rule, non-home rule. Which are we? For the opposite of us. For non-home rule. So that law does not have to apply to Evanston, but is generally best practices and was specifically added into the Zoning Board of Appeals rules roughly 10 years ago.
Okay. Is it possible for the council to overrule?
No.
No.
Let's go to court.
If it's if it's a provision of the municipal code that only is mandatory for non-home rule municipalities, and Evanston already has rules on that issue, such as the ones for the Land Use Commission, then there's no gap for that statute to fill. So Evanston is free to rule on that issue. So if there were rule changes to be made.
Who makes those rule changes?
Well, if there are rules, then we make those rule changes.
Yeah,
We would have to vote on.
We would just have to.
If there was a stalemate, and these people don't have no idea what to do, then we could change the rules to change that.
We could change the rules to a simple majority.
Yeah.
The question would become, and I don't want to belabor this right here.
No, I
right
understand.
now. But the question would be, is that a best practice for us when we have, for at least the time that I've been on Zoning Board of Appeals and Plan Commission and Land Use, the rule has all, actually not on Plan Commission, I'm sorry, because that was always a recommending body. But anytime we were determining, we had followed that.
Right. And I've never had it become an issue either, so hopefully it won't.
Right. All right. Thank you. So that's where we stand right now, which unfortunately doesn't give you an answer on anything tonight. Hopefully at the next meeting, we will have the other two commissioners will be here and they will both vote the same way, one way or the other. So there at least will be a resolution to the matter. All right. All right. Thank you. Moving on, that was the only case we had for business communication. Does staff have anything that they would like to communicate?
No, as has been the case for other meetings, we are marching forward with comprehensive plan and zoning code process.
All right. I will just mention that in the past couple weeks, I don't remember the exact date, Commissioner Hugo has resigned from the commission due to the fact that his current job and what he's looking at in the next 6 months really does not allow him to attend meetings regularly. And with our workload, having the comprehensive general plan, the changes to the zoning ordinance, these sorts of things, he felt it would be in the best interest of the commission to find someone else. The mayor is aware of that. The mayor will be bringing forth a name to city council at some point. I know there is a candidate whose name has been submitted. I don't know if the mayor is actively considering that person or not, but that's where we stand with that. Secondly, I am meeting this upcoming week with community development director and the manager of planning. Is that her planning manager? Planning manager, in order to sort of scope out what our timeline and involvement is going to be in approving of the comp plan and of the zoning ordinance. So we'll kind of have somewhat of an agenda of time when things will be rolling with us. We also have some plan developments coming down the pike. So we will try to balance these things out and not have everything happening all at once. So all of that will be coming at some point in the future. But once we get into that, I encourage all commissioners to please try to attend those meetings. This is one of the biggest things that we do as a commission is working on the comp plan and a rewrite of the zoning ordinance. I will, anybody have any questions about that? We do have a section for public comment. I'll note that all of the public has moved outside of the room. So it appears we don't have any public comment. And the final item this evening is for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Aravalo. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned until our next regularly scheduled meeting on August 28th, 2024 at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. Thank you.